on a packed international flight. Layla, a quiet black teen, sitting proudly in her business class seat, suddenly becomes the target of Brittany, a cold-smiling, racist white flight attendant who insists she must be in the wrong section. But the humiliation doesn't stop. Brittany keeps nitpicking Layla's posture, her bag, her ticket, even calling over another attendant, Sarah, pretending to double-check her seat, just to embarrass her. Passengers start whispering, but Layla tries to stay calm, until Brittany accidentally tilts a pot of boiling hot tea right onto Layla's arm. The entire cabin gasps because the man rushing down the aisle is Marcus, Layla's father, a billionaire the entire airline knows by name. And the moment he sees the burn on his daughter, he doesn't shout. He commands, "Brittany, you're done." The plane goes silent. Like, share, and subscribe for the full story. Layla Rivers never liked airports, not because she disliked traveling, but because airports were the one place where she felt too noticeable and too invisible at the same time. People either stared at her like she didn't belong, or looked straight through her as if she didn't exist. But today was different. Today was important. Her father had been preparing her for this day for weeks. Her first time flying business class alone on an international trip. She had flown countless times with Marcus at her side, but being alone in premium class, that was new and terrifying. She tugged her hoodie sleeves down nervously as the airport doors slid open, releasing a burst of cold, conditioned air. The smell of coffee, perfume, jet fuel, and early morning exhaustion greeted her like an old friend. "Can I take your bag?" her father asked behind her. Layla turned, smiling a little. Marcus Rivers looked effortlessly sharp in a dark charcoal blazer, a crisp white shirt, and tailored slacks. His presence commanded attention without trying. Even in a crowded rush-hour airport terminal, people looked at him twice, some recognizing him, others just sensing that he mattered. Layla lifted her backpack. "It's okay, I got it." "You sure?" "I'm 17, Dad," she said, rolling her eyes. "Not 7. He chuckled and pulled her into a quick hug. "Will always be 7 to me." Cringe, she mumbled into his chest, but secretly she liked it. They walked together through the premium check-in area. It was quieter, calmer, lined with polished floors, reflecting the soft golden lights. Business travelers rolled sleek carry-ons, talking into wireless earbuds. Layla felt out of place in her oversized hoodie and sneakers, but Marcus acted like she belonged, more than anyone else, because she did. He placed a hand on her back as they approached the counter. "This is your world too, Layla. Don't shrink yourself." She nodded, swallowing. "I'll try." The agent at the desk glanced up, her smile brightening instantly the moment she saw Marcus. "Mr. Rivers, welcome back. Traveling with us again." "Just seeing my daughter off," he said warmly. "This one's the VIP today." The woman smiled at Layla. Exciting first solo flight. Weariness crept into Layla's bones. Her throat felt tight. She tried shrinking into her seat, hoping Brittany would lose interest. But footsteps always returned. Always. Stopped at 4A. Always came with a new correction, a new subtle insult, a new reminder that Layla didn't look like who she thought belonged here. Slipped her hands into her sleeves, squeezing her palms to keep from shaking. She reminded herself, moments like this don't last forever. Dad will board soon. Everything will be fine. Still, her heart pounded across the aisle. A middle-aged man in a business suit glanced at her with a mix of sympathy and discomfort, like he wanted to say something, but didn't want to get involved. A woman nearby simply watched with mild interest, like the scene was a piece of entertainment. No one intervened. Layla had seen this before. When microaggressions happened to her in public, people rarely stepped in. Most preferred to pretend nothing was happening. She hated that she expected it now. Layla nodded shyly. "Yeah, kind of nervous." "You'll be perfect," the agent said, printing her boarding pass. "Your seat is 4A. Excellent choice. Right by the window. Lots of privacy." Layla's stomach fluttered. Privacy sounded good, actually. Amazing. Marcus walked her towards security. talking about all the boring business meetings he had to finish before joining her on the plane. "I'll board last," he said. "You just get comfortable. Text me when you're seated, got it?" You deserve every room you walk into." She smiled. "I know." He kissed the top of her forehead. "I'll see you on the plane." Layla held her boarding pass tight as she entered security. The long lines looked intimidating, but business class had priority lanes that moved faster. Still, she caught the occasional glance, people checking her outfit, her age, her skin, her presence in a premium lane. A couple behind her whispered, "She's flying business. Probably someone bought it for her." Kids these days, Layla pretended not to hear. She slipped her shoes off, placed her backpack in the tray, and walked through the scanner with a practiced calm. She didn't feel, after grabbing her things on the other side. She made her way toward the gate. Her heart jumped when she saw a familiar face waiting to board. Passengers early. Sarah. The brunette flight attendant smiled softly when their eyes met. She recognized Layla from previous flights. Always gentle, always patient. "Hey there," Sarah said warmly. "You're with us today." Layla nodded. "Seat? For a great seat. You'll love it. Board whenever you're ready." Layla took a breath and stepped onto the jet bridge. The long corridor echoed with footsteps and faint murmurs. Her hands grew clammy. Her shoulders pulled tight. Inside the aircraft doorway, Sarah welcomed her again. "Business is to the left." Layla smiled gratefully and turned, and that's when she saw her. Brittany. Tall, thin blonde, polished to perfection. Her hair in a tight bun, makeup done with surgical precision. Uniform fitted like a designer outfit. She didn't look friendly, not warm, not welcoming. She looked like someone who graded people silently the moment she saw them. And the moment she saw Layla, her expression flickered, just a tiny flicker, but Layla felt it. She pretended not to notice. She walked slowly down the aisle, admiring the beige leather seats, the soft gold overhead lighting, the large screens. Each seat was separated by high dividers, giving privacy but not isolation. A perfect balance. She found her seat for a window view. Spacious like a blanket folded neatly beside the pillow. The scent of lemon disinfectant and fresh fabric hung in the air. "This doesn't feel real," she whispered to herself. She placed her backpack under the seat and sat down carefully, touching the armrest like it might break. The seat felt like a cloud. She couldn't help but smile. Then she heard footsteps, slow, controlled, purposeful. Brittany, of course. The flight attendant stopped beside her seat, hands clasped in front, eyes scanning Layla from her braids to her sneakers. "Hi," Brittany said, in a tone that felt sweet but sharp. "Do you need help finding your seat?" Layla blinked. "No, this is my seat." "Oh." Brittany tilted her head, her smile tightening. "May I see your boarding pass, just to verify?" Layla handed it over, trying not to look embarrassed. Brittany read the ticket, looked at Layla, read it again, looked at her again. "You're in business class." Layla nodded, a little slower this time. "By yourself?" Brittany asked, still staring. "Yes." "Unusual," she murmured, not bothering to hide her confusion. Layla shrank a little. Her hoodie suddenly felt too small, too cheap. Brittany noticed the way Layla lowered her gaze, and her smirk deepened ever so slightly. "Well," she said, handing the ticket back. "If you need help with anything at all, let me know." The tone sounded like she meant the opposite. Layla whispered, "Thank you," but Brittany had already turned away for the next 10 minutes. Layla tried distracting herself with her phone, scrolling through pictures, listening to calming music. She felt the cabin slowly fill mostly business travelers in suits, fancy watches, polished briefcases. Then it began, the pattern. Every few minutes, Brittany would walk past her and always find something wrong. The first time, she stopped abruptly. "You can't put your backpack there. It needs to be further in." It is in," Layla replied quietly. "It needs to be more in." "Whole way." Layla nudged it. Brittany still looked dissatisfied. "Push it," she said, crossing her arms. Layla pushed it all the way until her fingers hit the inside wall. "Good," Brittany said, turning away Sarah, who was helping another passenger nearby, gave Layla a tiny, encouraging nod, as if to say, "Ignore her." Layla tried, but the little cuts kept coming too. Minutes later, your headphone cable can't be on the armrest like that. It could interfere with the tray lock mechanism. Layla moved it silently. Another minute passed. Make sure your seatbelt is visible. Layla pulled it out. More. Another. You can't sit that way during boarding. Another. Please, don't lean on the divider like that. Another. Phones should be in airplane mode by now. 20 minutes passed. Passengers settled. Announcements played. The doors were nearly closed. Still no sign of her dad. Layla took a breath, then another, trying to slow her heart. She reached for the blanket beside her seat, just to feel something soft. But the moment her hand brushed the fabric, Brittany reappeared like a shadow. "You can't open that yet," she said firmly. Layla froze. I wasn't opening it. I was just moving it. It needs to stay exactly where it is, until after takeoff. Layla nodded quietly. "Please listen the first time," Brittany added under her breath. "Business class has rules." Layla felt her eyes sting, and she blinked quickly to stop tears from rising. Sarah appeared again with a cart and paused near Layla. "Would you like a welcome drink?" she asked, with a gentle smile, before Layla could answer. Brittany stepped in front of her. "I'll handle this row," she said curtly. Sarah glanced at her with a raised brow, but didn't argue. She moved on. Brittany looked back at Layla. "Water or juice?" Layla swallowed. "Water." Brittany poured some into a glass without looking at her, set it down harder than necessary, then walked off without another word. The glass rattled. Layla flinched. Her stomach tightened with dread. If Brittany was already acting like this now, what would she be like in the air? The plane door closed. The cabin lights dimmed slightly. Safety announcements began. Layla folded her hands in her lap, trying to breathe normally. She hoped the plane would take off quickly. The sooner they were in the air, the sooner she could put on her headphones and disappear into a movie. She heard footsteps. Again, her body tensed. Brittany appeared once more, stopping beside her seat. "So," she said casually, adjusting a seat pillow nearby as if pretending to be occupied. "You're traveling alone?" "Yes," Layla murmured. "Interesting." Another sharp glance. Layla didn't reply. Brittany leaned slightly closer. "Just make sure you follow everything we say today, okay? Business class passengers expect a certain atmosphere." Layla's breath caught. She didn't dare look at her. "I will," she whispered. "Good," Brittany said, voice dripping with condescension. "I'm glad you understand." She walked away. Layla stared out the window, tears gathering quietly, her reflection blurry in the glossy surface. She hadn't expected any of this. She just wanted to fly peacefully, sit comfortably, maybe eat dessert first, because she could, but instead, she felt like she was taking up space she wasn't allowed to occupy. Like business class wasn't just a location, it was a permission she somehow had to earn, and no matter how many times her father told her she belonged here, people like Brittany tried to prove she didn't. The captain's voice echoed gently through the speakers. "Cabin crew, prepare for takeoff." Layla leaned back, closed her eyes, and tried to steady herself. The worst hadn't happened yet. She didn't know it. Not yet. But Brittany's cruelty was only beginning, and Layla's world was about to change the moment those wheels left the ground. The engine hum grew louder, vibrating gently through the cabin floor as the aircraft began its slow pushback. Layla felt it travel through the soles of her shoes, up her legs. Settling somewhere near her racing heartbeat, she exhaled shakily. The plane was moving now. There was no turning back, no way to escape the cramped world of Seat 4, and the invisible storm gathering around her. She hugged herself softly. Brittany stood 6 rows ahead, giving brief instructions to another passenger with loud, exaggerated politeness. Every word felt stage smiles too bright, laughs to crisp as if trying to show the entire business. cabin, how perfect she was. How in control she was. Layla hoped maybe, just maybe, the takeoff would create enough distraction that Brittany would forget about her, that she could fade into the background, disappear into the seat, and reappear only when they landed. Wishful thinking, she sensed. Brittany watching her even when she wasn't looking, as the plane began taxiing down the runway. Sarah approached with gentle movements. She checked seatbelts, headrests, trays. When she reached Layla, her expression softened instantly. "Doing okay," she whispered. Layla forced a tiny smile. "Yeah, just nervous." "I get nervous too," Sarah admitted, "and I fly every day." Layla's shoulders loosened by a fraction. She wanted to tell Sarah everything. The comments, the nitpicking, the demeaning tone, but something stopped her. The fear of making it worse. The fear of not being believed. The fear of being labeled dramatic. So she swallowed the truth. "I'm fine," she repeated, quietly. Sarah nodded warmly. "If you need anything, press the call button. I mean it." Layla nodded, but then Brittany appeared behind Sarah like a cold shadow. "Is everything under control here?" she asked. Voice clipped. "Yes," Sarah said softly. "Just checking in." "Well, don't delay the cabin prep," Brittany said. "We're seconds from takeoff." Her eyes flicked to Layla for a heartbeat too long. Then she smiled, a dangerous smile. Sarah gave Layla an apologetic look and continued down the aisle. The plane aligned itself with the runway, engines roaring now a deep, trembling thunder that always made Layla grip the armrests a little too hard. The nose tilted upward. The world outside slanted. Gravity pressed her into the seat. Layla closed her eyes. The cabin rattled lightly as the plane lifted. Wheels leaving the earth. Her stomach flipped the way it always did. She counted in her head to distract herself. 1, 2, 3. For 5. A loud click broke her rhythm. She opened her eyes. Brittany stood directly beside her seat, snapping the window shade closed above Layla's head. "I want all shades shut during takeoff," she said. Layla blinked. They already were. "No," Brittany corrected. "Yours was halfway open." Layla frowned. "It wasn't." "Are you arguing with me?" Brittany asked, voice dangerously low. Layla froze. "No," she whispered. "Good." Brittany smoothed her uniform and took a step back. "Please try to cooperate." Layla looked at the window. It hadn't been open. She knew it hadn't been open. She never touched it. She curled inward, replaying the moment, the sound of the shade sliding down. The accusing tone was Brittany, doing these little things, on purpose, creating moments where Layla had to obey, creating a dynamic where she could claim Layla was difficult if she needed justification. The thought made Layla's stomach ache. She turned her face away, pretending to sleep, even though her heart was thundering too hard for that. She counted the seconds until the seatbelt sign would go off. Minutes passed when the plane leveled. The cabin quieted. The engines muffled softly beneath them. The overhead light, DINGED. Signs are now off. Passengers immediately shifted in their seats, staking out laptops, reclining slightly, adjusting blankets. The mood became a little less rigid, more relaxed, all except Layla. She felt frozen in place, until she saw movement again. Brittany walking straight toward her. Layla tensed. "Miss," Brittany said, tapping the top of Layla's seat. "You're not allowed to recline yet." "I didn't recline." "You leaned back," Brittany insisted. Layla sat up straighter. "My seat didn't move." "It did, it didn't." Brittany's eyes narrowed. Layla shut her mouth immediately. "I'll be watching," Brittany said calmly, as though threatening someone was part of standard airline hospitality. She walked away, her heels clicking like metronome ticks of growing dread. A couple across the aisle exchanged glances. The man whispered, "Is she always like this?" His wife murmured, "Not sure. She seems to be targeting that girl." Layla heard them, and her chest tightened, but she didn't look up. She didn't want pity. She wanted invisibility. Minutes passed. Sarah walked through with a gentle smile, offering warm towels. The soft steam felt soothing when Layla pressed it to her face. Hot, comforting, safe, but that peace lasted barely 30 seconds. Brittany returned, her voice sharp as broken glass. "Your towel needs to go in the bag," she said, pointing. "Not on your tray table." Layla blinked, startled. I was about to. It should have been done already. Layla reached for it, with a trembling hand. "Quickly, please." Layla dropped it in the bag. "Good." Brittany gave a tight nod, like supervising a misbehaving child. Layla stared at her lap. She did nothing wrong. Nothing. But somehow she felt guilty. Small, out of place. She hated that. When Brittany walked off, Sarah stopped beside Layla's seat again, this time lowering her voice to a whisper. "You're okay." Layla forced a nod. "You can talk to me if something's wrong," Sarah said softly. Layla swallowed. Her voice came out thin and shaky. "I don't want to cause trouble." "You wouldn't be," Sarah said. "You'd be asking for help." Layla nodded, but she didn't speak. Not yet. Sarah's eyes softened. Understanding the battle Layla couldn't articulate. She moved on. Time passed with a suffocating slowness. The first beverage service was about to begin. Rolling carts rattled from behind the curtain. The soft clink of glasses filled the air. Layla breathed deeply. Maybe Brittany would stick to the cart. Maybe she would stay at the back. Maybe Brittany appeared again. Of course, she stopped in front of Layla's seat, as though drawn by some cruel instinct. "You're going to have to move your foot," she said, pointing to Layla's sneaker, barely touching the metal bar, dividing the seats. Layla pulled back immediately. Brittany didn't leave. "You need to be more aware," she said, voice firm. "This is a premium cabin." Layla nodded. "And premium cabins require premium behavior." Layla felt her chest cave inward. The woman across the aisle frowned openly now. Even she seemed fed up. Layla whispered, "I'm trying." "Try harder," Brittany replied. She straightened, smoothed her uniform, and walked away. Layla stared at the empty space she left behind, swallowing back the sting in her throat. She leaned her head against the cool window, blinking hard to hold back tears. She texted her dad, "Are you boarded yet?" No response. He was probably still in a call or waiting for his group to be called. He always boarded last. She wiped her eyes discreetly. 10 minutes later, the beverage service began. Layla watched Sarah start from the opposite aisle with a soft, genuine smile for each passenger. She wished Sarah would handle her row, but fate cruel and predictable sent Brittany, the blonde attendant, pushed the cart down the aisle like a soldier, marching into battle. Her smile returned, but only for certain passengers. The older white man in 3C got a bright one. The woman in 5B got one too. Everyone else, a neutral professional expression. Then she stopped at Layla. The smile vanished entirely. "What would you like to drink?" Brittany asked, clipped. Layla hesitated. "Just water." "You can have juice, tea, champagne, any water is fine," she whispered. Brittany gave a fake shrug. "Suit yourself." She grabbed a glass, poured far too fast, spilling a little. Set it down hard. Layla flinched. "You need to hold your glass properly," Brittany said sharply. "I didn't touch it yet." "Well, be ready next time." Layla nodded, her hands shaking as she picked it up. Brittany didn't move on. She studied her, observing, searching for something else to critique. Then, "Where's your guardian?" Brittany asked suddenly. Layla's stomach dropped. "Excuse me, you're alone," Brittany said. "Where is your parent or supervisor?" "My dad is boarding later." "Oh." Brittany's eyebrows lifted in faux surprise. "You're flying business class alone?" "Yes." "For an international flight?" "Yes." Brittany's voice lowered to a patronizing tone. "Is someone meeting you at your destination?" "Yes." "Who might?" "My uncle." Brittany paused. "Well," she said with a tone suggesting she didn't believe a word, "just make sure you behave. We've had issues with unaccompanied minors in premium cabins before." "I'm not a minor," Layla whispered, cheeks burning. "I'm 17. Oh. Brittany gave a condescending laugh. "So close enough." Layla gripped her glass so tightly her fingers hurt. The couple across the aisle exchanged concerned looks, and the woman whispered loudly enough for Layla to hear, "She's being awful to that girl." The man nodded, completely uncalled for, but neither intervened. No one ever intervened. Layla tried to watch a movie, but her mind couldn't focus. Every scene blurred into soundless colors. Every laugh track felt distant. Every dramatic chord muted behind the pounding in her chest. She paused the screen and pulled her blanket, slightly, not opening it, just adjusting it. Brittany appeared instantly. "You're not supposed to touch the bedding until after meal service," she said sharply. I wasn't then. Why is it in your lap?" It fell a little. Keep it exactly where we placed it." Layla nodded quickly and pushed it aside. From across the aisle, the man muttered, "This is getting ridiculous." The woman frowned. Someone should say something. Neither did Layla, leaned back, head pounding. She felt trapped, like the cabin was shrinking around her, like Brittany's footsteps were echoes she couldn't escape, like her seat was a stage she never auditioned for. She checked her phone again. Still no reply from Marcus. She texted again, hands trembling slightly. "Dad, I think something's wrong." She hesitated, deleted the message, typed again, "Everything okay? Are you close?" She didn't send the truth. She didn't send anything real. Because what if he came rushing in? What if people stared? What if Brittany blamed her more? What if it all got worse? She deleted the message entirely. Then she put her phone down and closed her eyes. But even with her eyes closed, she could feel Brittany looking at her, watching her, waiting for her next misstep. And Layla knew deep down this wasn't over. Not even close. Brittany wasn't done yet. And the quiet dread that settled in Layla's stomach told her the next part would be worse. Much worse. The plane had begun to settle into that familiar, mid-flight quiet, the kind that wrapped the cabin like a muted blanket. Most passengers had drifted into their own worlds, some scrolling through seat screens, others softly snoring, and a few staring out at endless banks of white clouds. But Layla didn't feel any of that calm, not even a little. Her heart was still pounding from the seat checked Brittany had staged, and her palms, despite the cool cabin air, remained damp. She closed her eyes and breathed quietly through her nose, something her therapist had once taught her for anxiety attacks. In 4-4, hold for 4, out for 4. She repeated it. Twice it helped. A little, but not enough, because 2 rows ahead, she heard Brittany's laugh. That same laugh, tiny, sharp, and coated with venom like. She used cruelty as a hobby, and each time Layla heard it, her stomach tightened more. Brittany watches her like a hawk. Brittany wasn't anywhere near done. In fact, the humiliation she'd already dished out seemed to have only encouraged her. She hovered around the business class cabin like she owned it, gliding aisle to aisle, whispering to Sarah about things she pretended were professional. But her eyes kept sliding sideways, toward Layla. At first, Layla tried to ignore it. She put on her headphones, pressed play on a playlist, opened the window to stare at nothing but sky. But Brittany's presence stayed intrusive, like an unwelcome shadow stretching longer by the minute. Every time Layla shifted in her seat, Brittany noticed. Every time Layla reached for something, her bag, her water cup, anything, Brittany's eyes tracked her movement with that mix of disapproval and suspicion. And somehow, that gaze made Layla feel smaller than she was. Passenger whisper chains begin. Layla wasn't imagining it. Brittany was nudging things along. Passengers had started whispering to businessmen across the aisle, kept glancing her way, pretending to be subtle but failing miserably. "She's barely 18, one whispered, and traveling alone in business class. The tone wasn't innocent. It carried that quiet, poisonous disbelief Layla had encountered too many times. That disbelief layered in assumptions. Assumptions layered in prejudice. Prejudice layered in tiny knives meant to poke holes in her dignity. Layla caught a small piece of the conversation. She looked away, face hot. She hated that part. When they didn't say anything outright racist, but the tone said everything. From behind her, another passenger muttered something she didn't catch, but the low chuckle, After it wasn't friendly, it was like the plane itself was slowly turning into an arena, and Layla had been shoved into its center without her consent. Sarah tries to help. Cautious Lasora, the kinder flight attendant, drifted toward Layla's aisle at one point. There was something apologetic in her expression, something that suggested she knew Brittany was pushing things too far. She leaned slightly toward Layla and spoke in a soft voice. "Would you like another drink? Water juice, something to help you relax." Her tone wasn't condescending. It was actually gentle. Layla appreciated the gesture, but before she could respond, Brittany appeared out of nowhere, stepping right between them. "We don't offer extra drinks outside the service schedule," Brittany said, her voice smooth but laced with threat. Sarah's eyebrows lifted, surprised. "It's literally water, Brittany. Passengers can have water anytime." "No," Brittany said, through a forced smile. "We wouldn't want to encourage certain people to think they get special treatment." Certain people. Layla didn't miss it. Neither did Sarah. Sarah pressed her lips together, nodded stiffly, and stepped back. She didn't argue, not because she agreed, but because she'd clearly learned that challenging Brittany mid-flight would only escalate things. Layla whispered, "It's okay," even though it absolutely wasn't. Sarah hesitated, then squeezed Layla's shoulder gently before disappearing down another aisle. The gesture warmed Layla, but it also scared her. Because if even the nice flight attendant felt helpless, what did that mean for the rest of the flight? About 15 minutes later, Brittany returned with a reason so ridiculous, Layla actually blinked in disbelief. Her seatbelt was already buckled. It had been buckled the whole time. Layla always buckled it. Tightly. She hated turbulence, but Brittany leaned in anyway, her tone dripping with irritation. "Can you confirm your seatbelt is secured?" she said, though she could clearly see it. Layla glanced down.
"Yes."
"It's buckled." Brittany made a disapproving clicking noise with her tongue, leaned closer, and tugged on the strap. It looks a bit loose. You know, safety rules exist for a reason." Layla stared. I haven't touched it." "Well then, please make sure it's tight. We don't want any incidents." Layla's throat tightened. "Okay." She tightened it until it pressed hard against her stomach. Brittany nodded, completely satisfied with the moment of control. Then she whispers, "Good girl," before turning away. The humiliation was deliberate, calculated, performed with ease, and it stung Marcus. Still unaware, the far end of the cabin, Marcus remained oblivious. He had noise-canceling headphones on, reviewing documents on his tablet. To him, the flight was peaceful, routine. He traveled constantly, meetings, conferences, charity events. He never assumed danger or disrespect would find his daughter in such a controlled environment. If only he knew. But Layla didn't want to disturb him. She kept telling herself, "I can handle this. It's just a flight. Just a few more hours. Don't cause a scene." Her mother used to say the same thing whenever they encountered prejudice. "Don't give them a reason to think we're the problem." So Layla sat quietly, breathing, enduring. A subtle act of kindness. An hour later, when the cabin lights dimmed for meal service, the elderly woman beside Mrs. Green leaned over with a soft voice. "Sweetheart, ignore them," she whispered. Her tone was warm, like she'd been watching everything quietly. Layla swallowed. "I'm fine." "No one's fine when someone pokes at them on purpose," the old woman said gently. "She doesn't like herself very much. You can always tell the ones who hate others usually hate themselves more." Layla gave a small, grateful smile. Mrs. Green patted her knee. "Your father raised you well. That's obvious. Keep your head high." Layla's heart ached a little. She wished her dad was aware. She wished someone would step in, but she didn't want to cause trouble, didn't want to be that passenger, didn't want to look dramatic. So she quietly thanked Mrs. Green and kept her gaze low. But kindness always had a way of poking the bear. Brittany watched the interaction from the aisle, and her eyes narrowed. Meal service begins, and tension rises when the meal carts appeared. The atmosphere subtly shifted. Passengers perked up, screens lit up, trays came down. Brittany and Sarah pushed the cart slowly down the aisle, clinking silverware and rustling packets. Sarah handled most of the interactions. She smiled, offered choices, refilled cups. Brittany mostly observed Layla. When they finally reached her row, Sarah brightened. "And for you, honey, chicken or pasta?" "Chicken, please," Layla said. Sarah placed the tray politely, but Brittany leaned in with folded arms. "Before we continue," she said loudly enough for surrounding passengers to hear, "I need to ensure your meal reservation is correct." Layla blinked. "My meal reservation? I didn't reserve anything special." Brittany forced a chuckle. "Oh, I'm just making sure it wasn't a mistake, that you got a business class entree. Wouldn't want another seating mix-up, right?" A couple of nearby passengers glanced over. Embarrassment flushed through Layla's chest. Sarah's jaw tightened. "Brittany," she said warningly under her breath. "It's procedure." Brittany snapped back, but with a smile plastered on her face. She pulled out her tablet and pretended to check, something dragging it out for a whole 30 seconds before saying, "Lucky you. It seems you do qualify." Qualify. As if Layla needed permission to eat. As if being black meant she couldn't deserve a decent meal. Layla didn't say a word. She couldn't trust her voice not to crack. A brewing storm after the meal. Brittany vanished into the galley for a bit. Layla hoped prayed it meant the worst was over. But when Brittany re-emerged, she wasn't holding a meal. She wasn't holding water. She wasn't holding trash bags. She was holding a stainless steel pot. Steam curled from its spout. The smell of strong herbal tea drifted through the aisle. Hot boiling, freshly brewed, she walked slowly, purposefully, almost theatrically, up the aisle. Passengers instinctively shifted aside to give her space. And even though she wasn't near Layla yet, Layla felt something icy slide down her spine. The way Brittany looked at her, not at her face, but at her arm, her lap, her tray. Her movements were too slow, too careful, too controlled. As if she were planning something. Layla's breath caught. Her fingers curled against her seat. Her heartbeat fluttered painfully in her ribs. Because some part of her already knew this wasn't going to end with words. Sarah notices something off. Sarah saw Brittany walking with the pot of scalding tea. She frowned deeply. "Brittany," she said, stepping toward her. "What are you doing?" "This isn't. I'm delivering tea to business class," Brittany answered. Her tone sweet, but sharp enough to cut glass. "You never serve it directly from the pot. We pour it in the galley." "Well," Brittany interrupted, "sometimes rules bend for premium passengers." Her eyes, once again, flickered to Layla. Sarah looked alarmed. She opened her mouth, perhaps to intervene again, but a call light dinged from the back row, and she had to go. "Don't do anything stupid," she whispered, before leaving, but Brittany was already smiling. That unnerving, rehearsed smile, a smile that meant danger. Layla braces herself. Layla's body tensed as Brittany approached. She didn't know what would happen, didn't know if she was imagining the threat, didn't know if standing up or speaking up would make things worse. She only knew one thing. Brittany's eyes weren't looking at a passenger, they were looking at a target. The pot trembled in Brittany's grip, not from nervousness, but from excitement. Layla instinctively tucked her hands close to her body, shoulders tight, breath shallow. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "Please, don't come near me." But Brittany only smiled wider, and the pot tilted just a little. Not enough to spill, but enough to send a message. Brittany stepped forward with the steaming pot of tea like she was carrying a weapon rather than a beverage. Her smile stayed plastered on, polite enough to fool someone not paying attention. But her eyes gave her away. They glittered with something mean. Layla's throat tightened. She pulled back slightly, instinctively making herself smaller in her seat. But there wasn't much room to shrink into. The armrests pressed in on both sides. Her legs were pinned by the tray table. She felt trapped, and Brittany knew it. The plane hummed softly, engines vibrating beneath the floor. Air vents whispering cold streams, passengers murmuring. But to Layla, everything sounded far away, faded, like she was listening from underwater. All she could hear clearly was the bubbling hiss of the tea inside that silver pot. A smile that didn't reach her eyes. Brittany leaned toward Layla's aisle with a practiced grace, the kind that flight attendants usually use to comfort passengers. But this time, there was nothing comforting about it. Nothing gentle, nothing neutral. Tea? Brittany asked sweetly, her voice drenched in poisonous sugar. Layla's voice shook. No, thank you. Are you sure? Brittany tilted her head, her hair falling over one shoulder. It's very calming, helps nervous travelers. Layla froze. Was that a jab? Of course it was. I'm fine, she whispered. Brittany's smile sharpened. Okay then, just offering, but she didn't move away. Instead, she shifted her grip on the pot slowly, calculatedly, and leaned in even closer, pretending to adjust her footing. The pot swayed, steam danced upward, brushing dangerously close to Layla's arm. Layla pulled her elbow inward, hands trembling in her lap. Please don't, please don't. Her mind repeated it like a frantic prayer. The moment everyone missed, until they didn't. Mors Green, the elderly woman beside Layla, sensed something was wrong. She looked up at Brittany, her wrinkled eyes sharp with concern. You should be careful with that, dear, she said. It's very hot. Brittany's smile didn't crack. Of course, she said lightly. I'm always careful. But her grip tightened. She inhaled through her nose and tilted the pot. It happened in less than a second, so fast that no one could have predicted it, yet slow enough that Layla felt every fraction of it. A stream of boiling tea arced through the air. Layla gasped, too, shocked to scream. Mrs. Green gasped, to her hand shooting out pointlessly. Far too late. The steaming liquid splashed across Layla's forearm and part of her wrist. Instant, searing pain tore through her skin. Layla's breath hitched, eyes widening, every muscle in her body tensing from the burn. Her tray rattled, her water cup toppled. The plane's dull hum suddenly felt deafening. The pain was sharp, hot, merciless, like fire in liquid form. Layla pressed her injured arm against her chest, tears instantly springing to her eyes. Brittany's reaction, a small, fake gasp. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, that was an accident. But her tone didn't match the words. There was no panic, no remorse, only feigned innocence. Mrs. Green's mouth fell open in horror. That was not an accident. Passengers nearby snapped to attention, heads turning toward the commotion. Layla felt the tears spill over despite trying desperately to hold them back. She didn't want to cry in public. She hated crying in public. It always made everything worse. But this pain, this humiliation, was too much. Her voice barely emerged. I told you not to come near me. Brittany shrugged lightly, as if Layla was overreacting. I said, I'm sorry. These things happen. You need to be more careful. More careful. As if Layla had caused it, as if being burned was her fault. Layla's breath shook uncontrollably. She curled her scorched arm closer, skin reddening rapidly. Mrs. Green pushed her tray aside. Sweetheart, let me look, please. Hold on. Passengers whispered urgently now. What happened? Did she spill hot tea on her? On purpose. Is the girl okay? Their tones were louder, angrier, finally aware. But Layla didn't hear most of it. The pain drowned out everything else. Sarah returns and realizes everything. Sarah rushed over the moment she heard the commotion. She saw the steaming pot in Brittany's hands and Layla's burning skin. Brittany, what did you do? Sarah's voice cracked in disbelief. It was an accident, Brittany said calmly. She moved suddenly. Sarah turned to Layla, eyes wide with genuine worry. Oh my God, Layla, I'm so sorry. Please, let me get ice, cold water, something. But Layla shook her head frantically. Please, don't make a scene, she whispered, voice trembling, pain etched in every syllable. Please. Sarah softened, heartbroken. Sweetheart, she hurt you. We have to help. Brittany rolled her eyes. Come on, Sarah. Stop being dramatic. Sarah turned toward, her jaw clenched. You do not spill boiling tea on a passenger. You do not walk around with a pot like that. And you do not. Yet before she could finish, a voice thundered from the back of the cabin. The cabin froze. Marcus appears like a storm. Marcus practically ran down the aisle, his face pale with fear and darkening with rage. He hadn't heard the earlier bullying. He hadn't seen the seatbelt shaming or the meal humiliation, but the sound of his daughter's pain, her choked breath, her whispered cry pierced through his headphones like a knife. He reached her row in seconds. "Layla, baby, what happened?" His voice shook. He knelt in front of her seat, gently cradling her injured arm without touching the burned skin. Layla swallowed, tears running freely now. She spilled tea. It was really hot. Marcus looked at her reddened skin. His face changed, instantly, any softness evaporating. His jaw tightened. His eyes hardened. He turned his head slowly and looked at Brittany. There was no shouting, no immediate explosion, just deadly, terrifying calm. "What," he said quietly, "did you do to my daughter?" Passengers held their breath. Brittany straightened her shoulders. "Sir, it was an accident." She moved. She did not move. Mrs. Green snapped from beside Layla. "You poured it on her intentionally." "I saw you, ma'am." "Please," Brittany began. But Marcus stood upright, and the temperature in the cabin felt like it dropped 10 degrees. Marcus's presence fills the cabin. Marcus wasn't just wealthy, he carried power. In the way he spoke, the way he moved, the way he stared someone down. Everyone on that plane felt it immediately. It wasn't arrogance, it was authority. He stepped between Layla and Brittany. Not aggressively, but firmly enough that Brittany flinched. "You spilled boiling tea on a teenage girl," he said, voice low. "On my daughter." "It was an ACC," Brittany started. "No," Marcus cut in sharply. "No, you are not going to lie to me. Not right now." His voice was so steady that people in economy turned to look. "You will explain exactly what happened," he demanded. Brittany's lips trembled slightly for the first time, but she held on to her arrogance. She was behaving unpredictably. "Sir." She looked out of place. In business class, gasps erupted. Sarah's eyes widened. Layla's heart dropped. Marcus's expression went cold, frigid. "Out of place," he repeated softly. "Because she's black." Brittany froze. Passengers erupted in whispers. Sarah covered her mouth. Even Mrs. Green inhaled sharply. Marcus stepped closer, his voice a razor. "You assaulted a minor. You targeted her. You humiliated her. And now you're trying to justify it." Brittany's mouth opened and closed, like she was searching for a defense. Marcus didn't wait. He reached into his inner jacket pocket, pulled out a sleek black phone, and tapped a contact so quickly it was muscle memory. Layla watched through blurry tears as Marcus said just one sentence into the phone. "Get the airline director on the line. Now, emergency." Then he hung up. Brittany paled. Marcus takes control of the cabin. He turned to Sarah. "Please bring ice, clean towels, anything to cool the burn, and call the captain." Sarah nodded immediately, grateful someone with real authority was stepping in. "Yes, sir," she said, and rushed off. Then Marcus faced Brittany. "You," he said quietly, "are done." Brittany swallowed hard. "Sir, you don't. I know exactly who I am," Marcus said coldly, "and I know exactly who owns this airline." Passengers' jaws dropped. Brittany's face drained of all color. Marcus continued, "I will not raise my voice. I won't cause a scene. But when this plane lands, you will not be wearing that uniform. You will not step onto another aircraft as crew. You will not get within 10 feet of my daughter ever again." Brittany stepped back, shaking slightly, but Marcus didn't move closer. He didn't have to. He was the storm, and she was the match that lit it. "Layla tries to speak, Dad." Layla whispered weakly, "It's okay, I'm fine." Marcus turned back to her instantly, softening at the sight of her watery eyes. "No, sweetheart," he said gently, kneeling again. "It's not okay. What happened to you is not okay. You didn't deserve any of this." Layla's breath trembled. She finally let herself lean. Toward him, Marcus reached out, carefully cupping the back of her head with one hand, while keeping the other steady near her burned arm, not touching it, just present, protective. "I'm so sorry I wasn't here sooner." he whispered. Layla's tears fell silently. Sarah returns with supplies within a minute. Sarah was back with ice packs wrapped in towels, cold compresses, soothing gel packets meant for burns. She knelt beside Marcus, eyes full of guilt. "Sir, Layla, I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I should have stopped her. I tried. I really did." Marcus gave a small, appreciative nod. "It's not your fault. Thank you for helping." Sarah blinked, surprised that he thanked her instead of blaming her. She carefully applied a cold compress near Layla's arm. Layla winced, but nodded, letting Sarah continue. The cabin watches justice unfold. Passengers stared in silence, some with shock, some with anger, some with shame for not stepping in. Earlier, Mrs. Green glared daggers at Brittany. The businessman who whispered earlier looked guilty. A mother across the aisle held her daughter closer, protective. People finally saw Layla not as a girl in the wrong seat, but as a victim of cruelty and Brittany. She stood frozen in the aisle, gripping the teapot like a lifeline, eyes wide and unfocused, the realization finally hitting her. She wasn't getting out of this.